I honestly don't remember when I first heard about Arc Raiders. At some point the name must have popped up, maybe a trailer, maybe social media. I thought, looks cool, and then I forgot about it. And then suddenly it was back in my feed. The second tech test was coming up, or already live, and that grabbed me. I figured, right, Arc Raiders, there was something there. No idea who was behind it anymore, but it looked interesting back then. So I shot my shot, and actually got in. I went in with zero expectations and came out a different person. Since that weekend, everything's different. I'm not exaggerating when I say I and a lot of the community had real withdrawal symptoms, as crazy as that sounds. I can't even remember the last time a game hit me like this. And after that weekend, everything else felt flat. I launched other games, but nothing felt right. Everything felt hollow, cheap, like distraction without meaning. Arc Raiders set the bar so high that everything after it felt kind of empty. Since that test, I can hardly think about anything else. Not loot, not weapons, but the feeling of having been there. And the fact we all got to taste the server slam 10 days before release didn't make the wait any easier. Arc Raiders woke something up in me I'd forgotten. Real wonder, hope, and anticipation. That familiar heartbeat when tech, sound, and atmosphere line up so perfectly that you feel like you're standing in that world. With that tech test weekend came the obvious question: who the hell are the devs behind this thing? I had no idea at first, and then I saw Embark Studios. And it clicked.
Don't make me do it.
Right. The team that made the finals. And then another memory. Years ago, I'd heard that some former Battlefield folks were starting their own studio. I never followed it back then, but after what I'd just experienced in Arc Raiders, everything suddenly made sense. These weren't some new devs. These were the minds behind one of the biggest shooter franchises, the people who shaped modern shooter feel. And at some point, they'd had enough. Patrick Söderlund, former head of DICE and later high up at EA, was one of the most powerful people in the industry. But internally, the air was gone. What used to be creativity had turned into process. When something didn't work, the default answer was always the same: hire more people. At one point, 900 people were working on a single game. An anonymous machine where hardly anyone knew who was actually making decisions. Creative ideas got talked to death in meetings. Decisions were made by spreadsheets and budgets, not by gut feeling. Söderlund summed it up perfectly later. The more people you throw at a problem, the less clear it becomes what you were trying to solve. So they pulled the plug. They left. Out of the system, out of the noise, out of the AAA assembly line. They founded Embark as a counter-move. Not a classic studio, but an experiment. A kind of lab meant to bring games back to what they used to be. Bold, human, emotional. Their motto was simple, almost old-fashioned, but honest. We want to have fun making games again. And build games that let you feel that fun. Not bigger, but more precise. Not faster, but smarter. Not more content, better ideas. From day one, Embark didn't want to be another content mill burning budget on asset production. They wanted to revolutionize how you build. Just 3 months after founding, they were working on tools that are still unique today. One pillar behind Arc Raiders is Embark's one-click photogrammetry. Sounds technical, but it's simple. You photograph a real object, an old wall, a tree stump, a rusty container, from every angle. The software detects overlapping features, computes depth, structure, and spits out a textured 3D model. What's special at Embark is how far they automated that. Normally, this takes ages. In a classic studio, you need days or weeks to clean meshes, optimize textures, reduce geometry, export, test. At Embark, it's basically push a button. Their system scans, auto-cleans, optimizes poly count and textures, and gives you a game-ready asset immediately. In one internal test phase, they built entire landscapes over 250 square kilometers with a tiny team in a fraction of the usual time. More than efficiency, it changes how a world feels. When you move through Arc Raiders, you don't see sterile, hand-polished shapes, you see real material. Rough concrete, dull metal, surfaces with honest imperfections. Your brain tags it as real. The second technical leap is their machine learning framework. Basically, the brain behind the arcs. While classic game AI follows fixed scripts, if player stands here, go there, shoot, dodge, Embark does it differently. Their enemies aren't just programmed, they are trained. It's reinforcement learning, trial and error until the system figures out what works. Devs don't hard-code behavior, they define goals. Survive, attack, seek cover. The AI tries countless variants, measures what works, and improves on its own. That's why arcs don't act like typical shooter mobs. They don't just rush you or run predictable loops. They move organically, dodge intelligently, use terrain, seek cover, react to sound and light, because they learned to, not because someone handcrafted the exact movement. A good example, there's a quest where you are supposed to take out a hornet with a sticky grenade. On paper, easy. You've got an aim arc, you see the trajectory, feels totally doable. Then you throw, and the hornet reacts. It sees the movement, senses danger, and sidesteps. Not scripted, not fake, like a reflex. You watch the grenade miss and think, oh wait, that just happened. Or the snitches, those little flying spotters. You tag one, then miss your next shot because you're nervous and it's wobbling from damage, unpredictable flight pattern, and suddenly the simple situation becomes a nightmare. The longer they live, the higher the chance they call reinforcements. And now you've got 2 hornets and a wasp on you. One mistake, one missed shot, and a chill encounter turns into a full survival fight. This kind of reactivity is the payoff of learning systems. You're never fully safe, never fully relaxed. Even routine encounters stay tense because arcs never behave exactly the same way twice. For devs, that's huge. Less hand-authoring every behavior, more focus on the experience. For us, it means no 2 fights feel alike. If an arc surprises you or flips your own tactic against you, that wasn't random. That was learned. Söderlund said in an internal talk, "We don't build tech to replace people, we build it to give people time back so they can create." That's Embark at its core, a tech lab with a soul. Their first 2 projects had code names: Project Pioneer, later Arc Raiders, and Project Discovery, later The Finals. Both ran in parallel as testbeds for the new systems. At Google Cloud Summit 2019, they openly said they wanted to open parts of their tech to the industry. And they actually open-sourced some of it. Even back then it was clear, Arc Raiders wouldn't be a normal game. The way the robots moved, how light, sound, and physics meshed, this was system intelligence, not tricks. Still, when the trailer hit the Game Awards 2021, the vision wasn't done. Originally, Arc Raiders was a pure co-op PvE game. Technically brilliant, atmospheric, but sterile. After months of testing, Söderlund said the line most devs never hear. The game is good, but not fun. That was the pivot. Instead of hiding the flaw or dumping content on top, they changed the core, adding PvP elements in service of dynamism against the studio's initial instincts. And it worked. Today, Embark is almost a philosophy. They don't work in big teams, they work in cells. Small, autonomous groups that ship features quickly and test them in-game. Ideas land in the build within hours. No gatekeeping, no hierarchy jam. Digital meetings, open docs, trust by default. The idea is simple. Less friction equals more creativity. You feel that in every frame of Arc Raiders. This world isn't a product, it's a stance. A manifesto against industrialized development that turns games into empty service shells. Arc Raiders is the antithesis of game as a service. It's not an endless subscription loop or monetization experiment, it's a statement. Technology can be art again when you give it back to the people who make it. And then there's the sound. Every tone tells a story. Every reverb matters. The arcs speak through sound. Snitches chirp sharply when they have your location. Hornets buzz like razor blades. In the distance you hear the thud of a rocketeer's explosions, often with flares rising into the sky. Those are raider flares. Whenever a real player goes down, on all fours waiting to be revived, a flare automatically shoots up. From anywhere on the map you can see. Players are there. A fight is on. Combine flares with the Rocketeer's rumble, and you know someone out there has a big problem. Add the metallic stomps of a patrolling leaper, the deep rolling drone of a queen. Even your own gunfire feels less like an effect and more like an event embedded in the world. No surprise, Battlefield always sounded phenomenal. But Arc Raiders goes a step further with proximity voice chat that makes you part of the soundscape. Your voice carries across valleys. When someone calls out, you hear where they are. Whisper behind a container or shout over a rock wall. The space shapes the voice. Wind, bridges, open plains. The voices don't sound like they're in the game, they sound like they're in the world. That changes everything. That's where Arc Raiders' heart sits. In people. Proximity chat turns human interaction into a mechanic. Every encounter becomes a psychological duel. Can you trust them? Will they betray you? Speaking is not a voice line, it's a decision, a risk. Every voice carries intention, fear, anger, uncertainty. You start reading people, not just movement, but voices. And you are being read too. That's how you get those rare, unscripted moments where chaos briefly becomes human. The devs said it plainly at TwitchCon. Design director Virgil put it like this. The main threat is the arcs. Arc Raiders isn't a PvP shooter with robots as set dressing. It's a world that lets you exist in the middle of things that don't really want you there. Arcs aren't enemies in the story sense. They're a force of nature. You're not fighting them, you're surviving in a world that isn't yours anymore. So when an arc chases you and you duck into a rusted factory while the floor vibrates and a hornet screams outside, that's not bad balance. They're strong on purpose. They are meant to pressure you and keep you moving, not to frustrate you, but to remind you how small you are up top. When you surface, you decide how to play. Hunt arcs all day, gather resources, just survive. If you focus arcs, remember, others can hear you. Or you take the risk and go after other players you heard fighting. Maybe they have good loot. Maybe they need help. You decide. And sometimes it just happens. Two paths cross, a tense beat, one shot too many, and suddenly it's PvP. Not because the game forced it, but because the world did. And thanks to proximity chat, you can still try to de-escalate. You're never forced into PvP by quests. That's the genius here. The game gives you room to behave like a human, not a quest marker. Distrust, trust, mercy, betrayal, those aren't scripted triggers. They are choices inside a simulation. Even progression follows that logic. No forced wipes, no hard resets. Choice instead. The Expedition project is a voluntary 8-week cycle you trigger yourself. From level 20 you can reset your character completely, lose all progression but keep what defines you as a player. Cosmetics, achievements, identity. Expeditions reward you but no power advantage. It's not a grind, more a rhythm. If you crave the thrill of a fresh start, take it. If you prefer steady growth, stay. Both are valid. As Virgil put it, we want to respect your time. No one should feel months of progress vanish just because a timer runs out. People say the game's too hard, the arc's too aggressive, too relentless. I think the arc are exactly right. They remind you are not the hero, you're a survivor. That's what makes every win meaningful. And yes, you feel the loss when you die, but it never feels unfair. You know you lost fairly. You feel the world taking you seriously. And every successful extract is pure cinema. Every single one. When you get out, after everything has gone wrong, that's not a win, that's deliverance. That blend of adrenaline and relief, that narrow escape, that's Arc Raiders. The immersion is so strong that both death and success are enjoyable. Both feel right. Arc Raiders isn't a game you finish and it doesn't want to please everyone. That's its strength. Some will love it. If you didn't figure, I do. Some won't, and that's fine. Too many games sand off edges just to be accepted. A lot of voices asking for more comfort, different features, pure PvE lobbies, less risk, more reward. They basically want a different game, but Arc Raiders isn't a different game. It's its own thing. Maybe that's the best part. It reminds you why you play. Not for loot, not for levels, but for a living world you want to return to because it won't let you go. And for the moments you never forget. It proves games can matter again. Tech, emotion, and risk in perfect balance. And when the servers go live on October the 30th, I know where I'll be. Topside, between Steel, Arcs, and other raiders. And as a gamer, finally, hopefully, home.